basic principles of democracy and self-government, amid one of its darkest times for survival short of war. Strikingly, it is also an account of how Biden seized the imperative of restoring the nation after the Trump nightmare, similar to how FDR rebounded after the Great Depression in the early 1930s. A few years earlier, Biden, as vice president, had led the Obama recovery from the Great Recession of the George W. Bush years. Now he spoke of an FDR-style presidency, staffed with seasoned individuals experienced in governance, using the slogan "Build Back Better," emphasizing not only restoration, but constructive experimentation in the years ahead, in the FDR New Deal model. In building his White House team, he also made a point to bring a better representation of the diversity of the nation to the government, beginning with his decision to make Kamala Harris his vice president. It was on this optimistic note that Joe Biden of Delaware embarked on a presidency that few veteran political observers had ever predicted would occur. In doing so, President Biden offered at a minimum a respite from the calamitous hijacking of the federal establishment by arguably the worst American chief executive in history. Furthermore, Biden's own long experience in politics and governance and his personal decency gave cause to anticipate a return to normalcy or more after 4 years of the darkest days dangerously endured. Chapter 1. Scranton. On November 20th, 1942, lost amid the latest news of Allied gains on the battlefronts of World War II, the Scranton Times reported on page 26 that a son was born this morning in St. Mary's Hospital to Mr. and Mrs. Joseph R. Biden of Baltimore, Maryland. Mrs. Biden is the former Jean Finnegan, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Ambrose Finnegan of 2446 North Washington Avenue. That was all the item conveyed. The child, the couple's first, was named after his father, and from the start was lovingly called Joey. At the time, Joe Sr. was working out of town, so Tom Phillips, a neighbor in the middle-class Green Ridge section of the grimy old eastern Pennsylvania city, drove the mother-to-be to the hospital. It was not reported that young Joey had anything to say upon delivery, an observation about him that later in life would have been unlikely. Elsewhere in the Times, the daily horoscope provided a not quite clairvoyant glimpse of the future Vice President of the United States. It foresaw great joy and good fortune for the child, as well as secret or unusual gains. It said he would be progressive, forceful, rigid in his judgment, and fond of study. It predicted a happy marriage, and declared that remarkable traits, talents, and abilities will be manifested in the child who is born on this date. Early fame and renown will be achieved, especially if the passions and emotions are controlled. The horoscope foresaw in a general way Joe Biden Jr.'s success, his liberal and determined manner, his marriages, and especially his early fame and renown. It proved to be somewhat off the mark, however, regarding controlled passions and emotions. Coinciding with Joey's arrival came triumphal news in the Scranton Times of U.S. and British forces engaging Nazi troops across North Africa and Eurasia, and confronting the Japanese naval armada in the Pacific. Front-page headlines in the local paper proclaimed, "7 more Jap ships sunk in South Pacific. Germans driven back by U.S. forces. Nazis suffer smashing defeat in Caucasus." But Scranton on that day otherwise seemed far removed from the war, without the excitement experienced to the south in Philadelphia, where a front-page story in the Philadelphia Inquirer offered a lively local angle. Just arrived at the Philadelphia Navy Yard, a critical home-front cog in the war effort, was USS Boise, previously reported lost in a great sea battle. As the cruiser steamed slowly up the Delaware, coming home from the war for overhauling, rivercraft blew...